What's up, guys? This is the Better Together Leadership Network. I'm here with Generation Y. We've been doing a lot of school assemblies, lock-ins, a lot of great stuff, which you guys know. And so throughout the whole time, I noticed you guys are very intentional about your relationships and connecting with students. So I kind of just want to have you guys, maybe each one of you guys kind of just share, like, why, maybe how is it so easy, or what makes it natural for you, or just some tips maybe for those that it's kind of, how about we start with that? Like, why do you feel like engaging with students outside of the event itself, like the assembly, which you guys do in the show part, why that would be so important as far as being in relation with that student? If you want to start, Tristan, I'll start down at the end there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think first off, like, whenever a kid sees you on stage, and then they see you in person, it can be two different things that they feel. Because when you're on stage, like you said, it's kind of like a show and it's a performance and it's something that you're watching. But when they get to meet you and talk to you, it's a lot more relational. And so I think it kind of closes that connection because they feel what we're saying when we're on stage. But then once we can have that conversation with them maybe afterwards, and build that relationship past just the show side of it, it helps them connect even on a deeper level, which I think is super
Yeah,
good.
so you feel like it makes it feel real then, like
Right.
what you're saying. All right.
Yeah, definitely.
How are you, Jordan?
I see that, like, I mean, kind of like what he was saying as well is like, I mean, they do see you on stage and you being able to translate what you're talking about and actually practicing it in real life, you're able to, like, show them that, like, you break that fourth wall of, like, just being somebody that's speaking to them on stage. You're actually being able to just be a real person with the kid and being able to relate with them. And then, honestly, like, the thing that really makes it easy, me personally, is that, like, I just ask them a lot of questions, you know? I don't really just be like, yeah, I do this, you know what I'm saying? But you're always intentionally asking them, so they're more talking, you know? So it's not more directed to you, but you as a leader, you're opening them up by asking them all the questions. So, but that's for me.
Yeah, I think it's important in life. I think it's important for people to know that the most important thing in life are relationships. You know, relationships are what can make or break some people, you know, whether they're good or bad. And I think that's important for us, you know, and as far as what we do and outreaching to those kids and letting them know, like, you know, when we talk to them at that point, it's like, okay, I'm not really so much here to, like, just speak a role or whatever. I'm here as just, like, you know, Tristan, Jordan, AD. I'm just here to talk to you about life. You know, I'll even tell you some of the things that I've gone through, you know, or things that I've went through or things that I'm still going through, and, like, ways to, you know, not saying, you know, we have all the answers, but just, hey, just understand that it's normal to go through some of the things you go through. You know, we're just trying to, you know, get that mindset to the point to where you can recover and you can stay on top of your game. And I think once they see us in that level, like, of just, hey, you're not on stage, like they said, you're, like, right here next to me, just talking normal, then it can open up their eyes and their heart to you.
So it's almost like, too, hearing you guys talk, so like almost boiling back that relational word, because you hear it quite often, like, especially like when it seems like youth leaders trying to or youth pastors communicating that to youth leaders that, hey, relationships are a key outside, you know, do life together.
Yeah.
It's almost like it boils it back down to the word mentorship.
Yeah.
It's almost like it goes hand in hand. You guys feel the same thing about that, like, or like or how would you say that, the things that make it look the same, like the relationship and mentorship.
Like the similarity.
Yeah,
similarities,
definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, we can keep order. No, I think mentorship and the relationship, they go hand in hand. Because, I mean, even if you go like on a biblical level with it, you know, like, and as far as relationships go on a grand scheme, that's what everything is a relationship between us and God. And so I think that's where you realize the importance of a relationship. And then he sent Jesus down for the mentorship. And so that's like they go hand in hand in that aspect, you know. And that's where we have to come in and be intentional with the relationships with the kids, even though we're not necessarily there for an extended period of time. That's where the youth pastors and the leaders have an advantage, is because they are able to do life with them and continue mentoring and implementing different things in their life. So, but I definitely think that there's a ton of cohesiveness between relationship and mentorship.
Definitely. I think mentorship is huge because I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't have mentors in my life as well. And so and just growing them. Some kids don't even have parents that they can go to for mentorship. So for even youth leaders or youth pastors like yourself, like to be that person that they can go to and trust and be able to be like, hey, I want to be real with you, and have that open door of communication with somebody that they trust and they look up to, and then they know that they'll give them the truth, and they'll also like be understanding at the same time, and then and also point them in the right direction where they should be going if they're struggling with something or whatever. It's like the mentorship is huge, and also that thing that you were talking about, like the awkwardness. I think the thing, kind of like what I was saying earlier, is like you're always putting it in their court, asking them the questions. You're talking like about their life, and then you're able to talk a little bit about your life to relate, but it's also like you're putting it in their court so they can open up with that. So I think that's like a healthy, mentorship type thing. So.
I think, and I think, they are really similar. I mean, but I think you have to, again, on the importance of relationships, you have to have a good relationship for the mentorship to be successful, and I think that's huge. Like, I mean, just looking at it as like for myself and like a guy like Jordan, Jordan is a guy I have like a relationship with, and I would say, mentorship with, and it's important because our relationship has been through a lot. Our relationship is so good that when it comes time for the mentorship, like it's easy, accessible. He knows like, hey, I can tell him this, I can tell him that, which is very important because again, it all goes back to if that relation, you build that relationship, then everything else falls into place.
Yeah, where you can speak truth into life. Yeah, like the story I'm kind of thinking of in the Bible is, I think it's in 1 Samuel, when Samuel was still a kid, and he's first time hearing God's voice, but he didn't recognize God's voice. But he had the I forget the prophet's name. Do you guys remember the prophet name at the time? By chance, yeah, I can't remember neither. But he went to him. He's like, no, I didn't call you. And by the third time, like, oh, maybe it's God. It's like all of a sudden, in that moment of they had a relationship, but then all of a sudden that prophet was able to like, oh, this is a time to mentor.
Yeah. In
that moment and say, this might be God. Next time, say, hey, God, here I am.
Yeah.
Now, have you guys ever found I guess, because since you guys travel a lot, see that maybe sometimes people or leaders take the relationship, I guess, too far as like focus only on like trying to stay relevant or close to the kid rather than they miss out on the opportunities to mentor the kids or students. You know what I'm saying?
Dang. That's a good question. Like, can you give me an example?
Yeah.
So like in the in Samuel, like if that prophet would have never said, hey, this could be God trying to say something to you, he could have missed out. Where Samuel took course, you hear of all what Samuel did. I mean, anointed the first king, had a relationship with God, and it all started from that that one moment of mentorship. And I think sometimes like leaders, I've noticed like even myself, sometimes I'll try to focus on the relationship with a kid, and then like just hanging out with kids sometimes, and I forget about I should transition my relationship with that kid and use it for mentorship.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, there's, because it can be easy because when you do have that relationship with somebody, it can be easy to look past, not look past things, but it can be easier to, overlook things for a period of time in order because you're scared of losing that relationship. And I think that's something as leaders, especially with youth, because they're so like they're changing all the time, and everything like what's going on in their life is changing all the time, and so it can be scary because you don't want to lose that kid. As far as like coming to the church and having that relationship, you don't want to lose them, but at the same time, what's the reason for them being there if you're not mentoring to them? You know what I mean? And so I think I think it definitely. I mean, I've probably been guilty of it myself, and I've definitely seen it where people can be so focused on that relationship that's all it is. And then the depth kind of starts to shallow out. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, it kind of becomes like more of like a just hangout session, like you were saying, and I've definitely seen that plenty of times because then there's like. That's when you get to the point where even like kids that you appoint leaders,
Mm,
they're like
yeah.
doing stuff behind closed doors
Yeah.
that they're not being held accountable for,
Mhm.
you know. And so, and I think like just holding people accountable, because like even like God, like he has the love side, but he also is just at the same time. So it's like having that healthy balance of knowing where those lines are, that if it's getting to that point of about to cross that line of like either sin or temptation or whatever, it's like you're able to either correct that or help them get back to
Yeah,
that
got
side. You know what I'm saying? And so having that healthy balance of love and just is like what would help a mentor be able to, you know, lead the youth and stuff. So
Cool, cool.
Yeah. I definitely would say, as far as like places that we traveled, and not even places that we traveled, like, you know, just in families and stuff, because you can see it a lot in like parents, you know, these
Yeah.
days too.
Yeah.
How like it's they like don't want to step on their kids' toes, and you know, I don't and you know, even like again, like Dave said, sometimes we fall victim to that system, but it's important, you know, that's why it's important to evaluate yourself, you know, going forward, you know, before, you know, you go into another service or a trip, whatever it is. And it's important that, like, you know, if you know, ask yourself, you know, do I really value like what I'm doing with these relationships with these kids or
that's a good
whoever? Because once you're doing that, then you won't be so worried to say what needs to be said, you know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, you're being more beneficial to being stern and to being like, I'm not just gonna tell you what you want to hear, because at the end of the day, that's gonna shape them up, and you know, to be in better position to succeed with their relationship with God, with their relationship with people, and going forward and just starting a new trend of, you know, not the lackadaisical, you know.
I think that also.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, it also goes back to the leader itself. Like, sometimes like we get too comfortable with like a kid or like a friend or whatever, that we are not also analyzing ourselves and holding ourselves to a higher standard, because like we're cool with them and what they're doing, so we're cool with ourselves, you know, falling short. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we both kind of are in that like, well, am I being a leader or not? You know what I'm saying? Because you're not personally like holding yourself accountable, or you not having a mentor, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the leader should be checking themselves at the same time as being able to lead the kid, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's good. Especially if you really care for that relationship, you will, like you were saying, speak truth into them, take it to that next level if you actually do care about that relationship, and then even holding yourself accountable within that situation as well. So I'm talking about relationships, and since you guys are so natural about it, and for those that are not as natural or they feel like it's awkward, I know we've mentioned like asking a lot of questions, and we've mentioned it to our leaders as well before. You know, just ask questions, get to know them. But like in those moments when you're like, okay, I feel like I've asked all the questions, how do you feel like it's like, what makes it feel not so like I'm just asking questions, towards it's like you're actually having a conversation with the student?
This way. I'm tired of doing that.
Alright,
do what you want, man. That's what you want to do.
Yeah, like, man, I just wanted. Okay, Tristan says this all the time, and it's it's super true. It's really only awkward if you make it awkward, and you know what I'm saying. Some of it has to do with maybe sometimes we lack confidence. You know, sometimes we kind of just run out of steam, and then like if there's that awkward silence, if there's that awkward pause, it's like what to do next, you know, and it's just kind of like, hi, my name is such and such, and I do this.
You can only say hi so many times.
Yeah, and then like it's kind of like you're just running on the treadmill, you know, you're not going anywhere with it. And so I think it's important, you know what I'm saying, to like see where you're stemming from yourself, because like, you know, being a leader, like you have to reach out. That's part of being a leader, you know what I'm saying? You have to take those steps to make things happen. And so I would say, like, in situations like that, you know, you know, don't give up and don't like just let it just be like, okay, well, this kid doesn't want to open up or doesn't want to talk, so I'm just gonna walk away and it is what it is. On to the next one. No, like something that helps me is I like to study people.
Okay.
You know, I just like to, you know, and not just throw myself on them, but like kind of understand how they work, how they move, things that they're comfortable with. You know, especially going into different schools. You know, you got some kids that. Like, they don't want to talk about, you know, class or anything, but they want to talk about video games, you know what I'm saying? And even if it's something you're not too into, you know, ask them questions about it, because then once you're doing that, once you're putting the ball in their court, they're like, oh, you care about, like, what I do like, you care about what, you know, okay, so maybe I can open up to you about this, you know, maybe we can, and then it just goes deeper from there, and before you know it, you know.
So within that same concept, so like let's say you're in a conversation and feel free to jump in it as well for you guys. You're having that conversation, right? You find out, let's say through that conversation you're having with them, that they are into video games or something like that, but you don't relate on that level. All of a sudden, how do you continue then for you guys, like into that conversation? If you have like, I know it's probably easy for us because we play video games, but like if you, let's say you didn't play video games.
Right.
Like
I don't play video games.
Okay, there you go.
So let me tell you.
So yeah, so like in those moments to where it's about to become awkward, how do you do it?
Let me tell you, I've had this situation before. This kid was going in on talking about Halo, right?
Yeah.
He's telling me all these
I
like
feel
tap,
you
you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, man, that's awesome, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I know a little this and that about stuff, and you know, there's buttons, you know, anyway. But like, I mean, like asking those questions on like, is there like a, you know, video game live, you know, like asking those things, and then they just go on and on. Who do you play? Like, you play with your friends? Do you play with, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. Like, then it just, once you talk about that situation, if you're able to talk or ask the right questions, you can lead out of that conversation and get talking into something else. And so like, even last night, whenever we were at the lock-in, there was a girl that was like super dope at like drawing, and so she was like flipping through her notebook of like showing us the sketches and stuff, and they were like super dope, you know. And then she was like, we were just showing interest, and I was like, I even brought like, you know, them into it, you know. I didn't want to be the only one. I wanted to show somebody else, and then showing somebody else is like, it made her feel, you know, even more like, oh man, I guess I am really good, you know. And then once I showed these guys, it's like
they were to chime in and
and then not only that, but then she pulled out her phone, was like, well, I got more, you know. So she pulled out more drawings, and it was just going on and on. And so it's just like getting them to feel like, I mean, it's not like getting them to feel like they're the important person, but they are, you know what I'm saying? Making them like feel like they're wanted and valued and all that.
So, yeah, I think it's like, you know, you don't necessarily have to relate on that level, but if you show interest in it, that's the big thing. Because a lot of people, I think we can, if we don't know what they're talking about, or if we don't connect on that level, then we just kind of tune out. And
true.
So I think just showing interest and listening to what they're saying, because like Jordan said, you know, he doesn't know anything about Halo, but this kid was going on and on, and he was still showing interest, asking questions like, oh, well, that's cool, like, do you do this, can you go live, like, blah blah blah, like, even if like the kid might laugh, you know, and you may feel awkward, but however awkward you feel, the kid probably feels more awkward. So as long as you show interest in what they're like and what they're talking about, they feed off of that, and it makes them feel more comfortable.
My favorite person that I've ever seen talk to anybody is my dad. He's just like, he doesn't know anything about anything that's relatable. And so, but he's the best at telling like the funniest jokes, or like just striking up a conversation with somebody, because like, or whatever. And like, that's where I probably got my awkward like jokes and stuff from. But it's the best on how to like start a conversation with somebody. And like, to get to that point of just starting the conversation, that's the hardest part, you know what I'm saying? Once you're in it, I mean, just like we did with this podcast, it took us forever. But we finally got into it, and it's like, this is how we get conversations rolling. We just got to start it. So,
I guess the last question I had then, so you made that first step, you know, had that first conversation, right? Got a good conversation going, but then, you know, I guess that next time coming back to that student, what would you say you pick up where you left off as far as that same conversation? Or like, how would you guys approach that? Same student, different day though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because at the same time, because I found where, even with myself, it can become repetitive where all of a sudden you're going through the same routine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How was your day?
Yeah.
You
And
know,
I think that's the most difficult too, is that maybe that second time, like almost like a follow up with that student.
yeah, definitely, because I mean, and that's where I feel like that's the biggest awkward moment, you know, that's possible, and that like starting a relationship with somebody, because it's like, okay, I came in with all these questions, like to get to know you, to get to know what you do, yada yada yada, kind of like, and then you kind of have like that now what feeling.
Yeah, yeah.
But again, you know what I'm saying, mentally, like, invest yourself, and it takes a little bit of mental power, not mental willpower, because you know what I'm saying, find ways, you know, I mean that sounds kind of just vague, but you know, find different ways to approach them, and then not only that, I mean, you can still piggyback off of like things that went on in that first conversation, like, oh, you know, hey, I'm on the volleyball team, yada yada yada, and you know, see him, hey, so how's volleyball been? How's practice been? You know, how do you guys have any games? You know, or oh, I'm ineligible. Why are you ineligible? You know what I'm saying? You know, stuff like that. Like, you
That gets
know,
a whole nother conversation.
exactly. You know, because like, I mean, it just, you like that, and that's what I mean, like, by find ways, you know, and don't be like, again, don't ever, you know, give up on stuff like that, because man, I've had like, I mean, just this guy, you know, I mean, it's kind of a testimony in this sense, because like I've known him for a while, like known him, but like, you know, I didn't take the time to like really invest in a relationship with him, you know, and then like, you know, a few months ago, you know, I found one of my best friends in life, you know, and it's that same way with, you know, being a leader, being a mentor, being these kids. Sometimes you'll find kids. I have kids like even here in Michigan. Like some of these kids that I see, man, my heart does flips. You know, and I've met them. You know, last time I was here, that's been that one time. But I have like such a deep connection. It's, you know, that they've either opened up about whatever, you know, and just it's just like, man, it's, you know, it's amazing. It's fulfilling. So.
You guys have any answer to that, I guess, for that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like that follow up is the hardest thing, because for us it's like, I think we get the easy job. You know what I'm saying? We strike up the awareness and talk to them for you know, a couple of days and 3 days, but you know, leaving them in your guys' court is like, you guys deal with them every day. So but I mean, yeah, just like investing in them, and in the fact of just piggybacking off of what you all have already talked about, but then also is like, I mean, there's so much you can talk about. Like, you can't, like, I feel like you can't run out of stuff to talk about, you know?
Just being intentional about it.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's even just, like, even if I, you know, don't see these guys or Jim Y in a while, you know? And then, like, a couple weeks later, we see each other, you know? And we haven't had any practices or anything, but we still see each other, and we're, like, just talking about whatever, like nonsense.
Whatever.
And like, and it's like, it's just like we picked up where we were left off, you know? And it's not like, I think like, for some youth leaders, I feel like there's sometimes an overwhelming feeling that's like, man, I have to get to know all these kids, and then, but invest into them all at the same time. I feel like if you invest in like, you know, I mean, kind of like I've heard, exactly. The 12, like you have a good group of kids, like every leader, you know, 1 to 10, that ratio, you know, like I feel like that would make a solid group, you know, you invest in those 12, know everybody else, and like get, you know, are cool with them, but it's like you're investing in these, you know what I'm saying? And so it makes it like, once these guys are like really invested, they'll start bringing their friends, you know what I'm saying? And so that's how you build the leaders, and then the youth group just builds off of them.
And that's kind of where I was going to go too, is I think a lot of times people take the burden on themselves, when in reality, once you find out the basic stuff about the kids, you know, don't be afraid to not pass them off, but like, but don't be afraid to introduce them to somebody that you think that they'd be able to click with a little bit better, because there's leaders in every youth group, whether it's adult leaders or you know, upperclassmen, whatever it may be. There's definitely people or kids that you know you can go to if you need something. The same thing like at our home church, my pastor's wife does it to me all the time. Anytime we have like any like new, you know, college age kids or anything like that come, she'll introduce them to me, or a couple of my friends and be like, yo, like this is so and so. Just talk to them,
Yeah.
and get them involved in what you do, and then we'll bring them to the young adult group, start hanging out with them, that kind of thing. And it's the same goes for the youth group. You know, you have a kid that maybe you won't be able to connect on that certain level with, but there's somebody there that will be able to. And that's the most important thing, is making them feel like they're at home.
I like that, having the intentionality that you don't have to be the person, but you can find the person for that.
Yeah,
student.
definitely.
So-
It'll catch somewhere.
Yeah, so-
definitely.
Well, that's been some good conversation, I think. Do you guys have any closing thoughts, or before we end then, or? Cool.
Good, yeah.
Well, this is Generation Y, guys, so until next time, see ya.
Iron army rising up like a rocket.